A fitting and emotional end to Nathan Drake's story, Uncharted 4 starts off slowly but builds to a crescendo that rivals the previous 3 games. Story-driven games are something I love, particularly if they weave the story into the gameplay so well that you don't really notice things like where the cutscenes end and the gameplay begins. The Last of Us is my favorite example of a story-driven game that carries out a perfect balance between action and story, and it's still my favorite game of all time. Even now, I carry with me the emotions it generated the first time I played it, and anytime I think about the game, I wish that I could forget everything about it so that I could experience it fresh once again. While Uncharted 4 doesn't quite meet that mark, it's a big step further towards the story-driven direction than the previous 3 entries in the Uncharted series, which I played through in sequence last month in preparation for playing Uncharted 4. Uncharted 1 through 3 seemed like alt-universe Tomb Raider-esque games with lots of puzzles and jumping, while the story only existed to help you maintain interest and give some justification for putting Nathan in the situations he was in. Uncharted 4 turns that around, putting the story first and giving us a glimpse into the emotional, caring, and loving side of Nathan Drake, one who has very real faults but would also go to any length for his family and those he loves. This is a shift that may leave those who liked Uncharted 1, 2, and 3's balance somewhat dissatisfied with Uncharted 4, but instead of leaving Nathan's final tale as just another adventure, it gives us both an adventure and a story that will pull you in and won't let go. Without going too deep into spoiler territory, Uncharted 4 brings in a new cast member, Nathan's long-lost older brother Sam, who you get to play alongside both as an adult and as a child in a continuation of Uncharted 3's flashback gameplay sequences. These sequences, along with some slower present-day gameplay, leave the first few chapters of the game feeling slow and plodding as the overarching objective of the game slowly pulls into focus. Nathan and Sam are searching for the greatest pirate treasure ever conceived, a $400 million haul of gold and jewels. Once the meat of the game begins, the action and story don't let up though. There are a few times where the action slows to allow for some emotions and character development to leak through. We see Nathan here in his rawest form. He's older, wiser, and finally is discovering what he really wants in life. Character emotions, particularly those from Nathan and Elena, are almost disturbingly real thanks to the incredible graphics and motion capture work. I was taken aback the first time that I actually saw emotions written across their faces because I was no longer just hearing the emotion and putting my own interpretation on it based on the set pieces. While there weren't any moments as heart-wrenching as the opening and closing scenes in The Last of Us, I can honestly say that I haven't seen 2 characters in a video game react so realistically to one another as the main characters in Uncharted 4. That's not just a technical feat though. It also speaks volumes to how well the writers did in making Nathan and Elena, despite how outlandish their adventures are, feel like real people. Sam and Sully don't have quite the same impact as Nathan and Elena, which is slightly disappointing, especially given how much of a focus Sam has in the story. And speaking of the story, Uncharted 4 goes in a somewhat different direction than the first 3 games. Again, without getting into spoilers, the first 3 games have a general theme that the fourth, to my surprise, doesn't share. This isn't a bad thing by any means, and for those who haven't played the first 3 games, they won't even notice it. Fans of the series in general will though, and it will add a bit of a WTF moment when they reach the end of the game and realize that the story didn't have that element from the first 3 games. Again, this isn't a negative, but more of a curious observation. Beyond this bit though, the epic treasure hunting aspect that Uncharted has always been about is still present, and to some degree even more epic than before, at least on the scale of how much the treasure is worth. There's plenty of globe hopping, a new stealth aspect, and plenty of relatively easy puzzles to solve that will keep you up late for at least one night saying just one more area over and over again. What's more important than the treasure though are the characters. This, according to Naughty Dog, is Nathan Drake's last adventure, and there won't be any more Uncharted games. On the one hand, this is obviously sad if you're a fan of Nathan Drake and his band of misfits, but on the other hand, I'm very glad that they're ending the game on a high note. They could obviously milk the daylights out of Uncharted for years to come and make more money than Drake has found in all of his treasure hunting, but I respect and applaud them for going out like they have. We see more character development in this game than we have before, and while some aspects of the interpersonal relationships are too glossed over to be realistic, most of it feels real enough that I'll give those bits a pass. By the end of the game, Nathan has solidified the man who he's turned out to be, and the epilogue, while short, is both a satisfying cap to the end of his story, while also being a hint at the possibility for things in the future for the Uncharted series. As I've already mentioned a few times, the emotion of the game feels very real, and that's thanks in large part to the incredible graphic work that's been put into the game. If you played the remastered version of The Last of Us for the PS4, you'll be even more blown away by the work in Uncharted 4. Close-ups of faces show emotions in the eyes and mouths, while massive mountains, volcanoes, and cities provide breathtaking backdrops for intimate conversations, harrowing climbs, or just standing still to take in the scenery. The game's photo mode provides endless possibilities for setting up incredible shots, as it allows for you to change aspects of the scene, like removing characters with the press of a button, in real time. Don't be surprised if you end up spending more time fiddling around with the photo mode than you do playing the game. Movement feels perfect in Uncharted 4, although the controls will take some getting used to if you're fresh off of a playthrough through any of the previous games. Naughty Dog has changed up the control scheme from the previous games, and it was seriously confusing to me for the first first half of the game, as I kept hitting buttons that I thought would do one thing only to have them do something completely different. As of right now, there isn't an option for a classic control scheme or any control scheme changes, which is frustrating, since it breaks the immersion of the game when you go to reload a gun and throw a grenade instead. There's also a new emphasis on the types of movement that you see in The Last of Us, especially when it comes to stealth. Stealth never really worked for me in Uncharted 4 when I tried it, but I think that had more to do with how I played the game than the game itself. Jumping around from ledge to handhold is just as ridiculous and incredibly fun as ever, and the addition of a new grappling hook makes for some even more outlandishly fun escapades. A new sliding mechanic is introduced as well, but gets tiresome after seeing it pop up multiple times in a row for what feels like no other reason than just having it in there. Sliding down towards a bottomless crevice and having to grapple onto a conveniently placed post is fun each and every time, I have to admit. Both of these mechanics feel a bit forced, but it's not enough to ruin the game. There are times when I wonder why I couldn't just use my grappling hook to help people up ledges, climb into certain areas myself, or hook onto parts of puzzles, but then again we're talking about a game where a person is able to leap dozens of feet and catch himself on the edge of a smooth rock with his bare hands, and pull himself up without any issues. If realism were a measurement of Uncharted, then it wouldn't even be allowed in school, much less given an F. Uncharted 4's audio, music, environment, and other is incredible, which is nothing less than what I'd expect. The music swells and diminishes appropriately, always complementing what's going on screen and never clashing with it. Boards creak as you walk across them, rocks crackle and tires screech and squelch appropriately through the terrain you're traversing. Audio design is an art form just like any other, and even though I've played plenty of games where the audio design blows me away, I never get tired of seeing it executed in such a brilliant manner. All of the game's audio deepens and heightens your gameplay experience. Now, enemy variety doesn't change much from the last Uncharted game, which is a disappointment. Enemies have a standard weapon loadout which corresponds to what they're wearing, so you can always tell at a glance what to expect from everyone you encounter. As helpful as this is in prioritizing targets, it does get a little stale by the middle to end of the game. You also won't see any new enemy types, which is especially sad since there are multiple opportunities to inject them just based on the locations and what's going on in the story. The main antagonist does, however, provide a satisfying end battle which fans of the series will love and have undoubtedly wanted for a long time given Nathan's pirate ambitions. It's sad to see the Uncharted series come to an end. I'm a relatively recent Uncharted fan, never having owned a PlayStation before the PS3, which I bought along with The Last of Us just so that I could play that game. In the creation of Uncharted 4, Naughty Dog has once again proven that they are masters at expertly weaving a story around action and adventure, and while Part 4 of Nathan's Tale has more story focus than the previous 3 games combined, it works in the game's favor. Of anyone, Sully gets the short end of the stick when it comes to resolutions, but given what we see happen to Nate and Elena in the epilogue, I'm willing to let that slide. Fans of Uncharted obviously can't miss this game. Those who are new to the series would be well served to take a week to go through the Uncharted collection for the PS4 before playing Uncharted 4. If you don't do this, then you'll likely be replaying the first 3 games immediately after finishing the 4th, as you'll want to experience as much Uncharted as possible. When playing Uncharted 4, the best advice I can give you is this: give in to the willing suspension of disbelief, take your time exploring each new section of the game, and allow yourself to become lost in the story. You'll be well rewarded for doing so. I'm Mike, and this is Game Night with Mike. If you enjoyed this review, please consider subscribing. Thanks, and I'll be back again soon.